Dear ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to Šiaulių bankas Investor Conference webinar to introduce financial results for 2019 and recent developments. Nasdaq Vilnius Stock Exchange is pleased to introduce today's hosts, the Chief Executive Officer Vytautas Sinius and the Head of Finance and Risk Management Division Donatas Savickas. Before we proceed with the presentation, I will shortly introduce you with the agenda. First of all, the heads of Šiaulių bankas are going to present the results, and after the presentation, we will be answering your questions that you can send along the whole webinar session using the questions box on the webinar control panel. To those investors who submitted questions in advance, I would like to pay your attention that some questions will be answered during the presentation by incorporating them into the certain topics. So on this note, let's start. Dear guests, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone, the investors, analysts, colleagues. I welcome you all to the Šiaulių bankas presentation of annual results. Hope everybody safe and sound will be able to spend approximately 1 hour with Šiaulių bankas. Seems webinar is the most safe and best way now to present results in the current environment. So let's start, and we can move to the slide number 3 with just a sec. With the financial highlights of 2019. So seems we had a strong year. We've reached our targets, so you see in the slide the key indicators. So most of them are above our expected levels indicated before, and the performance of our strategic business lines like corporate financing, consumer financing led to the strong performance. So return on equity well above 15%, so stands at 17.6. Cost income is also below our target 45%, stands at a 42.5, and the risk parameters also above our minimum requirements, and capital adequacy ratio at the end of the year was 16.2%, NPE slightly above 3%, and the market shares that we also targeting for consumer financing and corporate financing has grown during 2019. Respectively for consumer financing up to 10.4% and corporate 12.1%. Another achievement, which I would say more softer criteria, but important, net promoter score has increased up to 65. I just remember the previous period was 63, and the bank was recognized as the best service company in Lithuania, best service financial company in Lithuania. We also had strong growth on the loan portfolio, 21% over the year, and most of the growth has been financed from our deposits, which reached the level of 2 billion. So let's go a bit deeper to the financing instruments, so to the loan portfolio dynamics. So as I mentioned, the previous year and year before both shows strong growth in a loan portfolio. So the last year with 21%, close to 300 million increase in the loan portfolio. In order to reach that level of a growth, we've been able to generate new loans close to 770 million. And also positive to follow the strong and high level of yield on loans, which stands at the level 4.4, quite flat, but I would say rather high, knowing that mortgage portfolio grows rather during the last year. So that portfolio grew by 103%, consumer financing 41%, corporate financing 18%. And worth mentioning that with the stronger capital base and favorable conditions in the market, bank has been able to attract larger tickets, larger companies. So we are not only dealing with SME, but more and more mid-corps choosing our service, and the environment allowed us to take even larger tickets. Consumer financing, another our strategic line, also showed pretty strong growth of 41% of the portfolio, and there was some transition year for Šiaulių bankas group, since we concentrated our all consumer lending products within the Šiaulių bankas leasing company called SB Leasingas. So this company is now responsible for the product development and processes related with the consumer financing, and the bank mainly acts as an intermediary, as a sales channel among other alternatives that are used by SB Leasingas. The growth of 41%, I would say, was reached due to the efficiency of the processes. So we as a bank using the SB Leasingas platform, which is very efficient on providing services through the bank channel as well as the other intermediaries. Also, the effective marketing and the pricing strategy was used to reach sufficiently high level of growth in 2019. Another area of interest for Šiaulių bankas are mortgages. So the last year, I would call the turnaround year for Šiaulių bankas in this product line. So we became a much more visible player in the market, and the favorable environment allowed us to demonstrate rapid growth. And by favorable environment, I mean the strong housing market, because in Lithuania we had a strong development of sales of the housing. Also, increase in the interest rates also performs profitable, good profitability for Šiaulių bankas selling this product for the clients, and also the less fierce competition, I would say, in the market when we used to have more players, and with the exit of one and the merger of a few banks in Lithuania, the less players remains who are providing the service for the clients. So the growth of close to 100% during the year, from 50 million up to a bit more than 100 million. And the latest development shows good signs for the further growth of mortgage portfolio of Šiaulių bankas. Also worth mentioning the ongoing deal with acquisition of retail credit portfolio of 125 million euros from Danske Bank. And we're in a process. The integration works in place, also communication to the client about the ongoing change. And we expect in a few months the transaction to be closed, and I see little issues that could be challenged not to complete this transaction. Next slide, number 7, about loan portfolio quality. So we continue to maintain, I would say, well-diversified portfolio, and with the growth of mortgage loans, it continues to be even more diversified. And none of the sectors contribute more than 15% of the total loan portfolio. So far, I would see there are no adverse tendencies in any of the sectors of economy sectors. Probably worth mentioning that we made provisions during the last year with the majority of amounts going to the meat production companies, which were not successful for a few of enterprises. However, I would not say that this is a kind of general tendency in the market in the sector, just different reasons that a company were not being able to perform as it was expected at the beginning. So the goal of Šiaulių bankas is to reduce NP ratio down below 5%, and we'll try to do our best to managing this parameter in this year, knowing that 2019 was of a rapid growth, so this year would require more attention to the development of a currently built loan portfolio. So impairment losses of loans in last year was at the level of 7.2 million euros, and cost of risk stands at the level of 0.5. So just to remember that our estimation of cost of risk during the cycle is around 1%. You see in the graph the development of both loans past due and the NP. So loan past due have the tendency or the trend to go down. NPE, I would say, stands on rather the same level during a few years. So it's about 80 to 90 million euros. On the percentage, it's 5.3 at the last quarter of 2019. So yeah, that's I would say, rather flat level. Talking about absolute terms, and that's one of the focus of Šiaulių bankas to continue to deal with non-performing exposures. So let's touch a bit another part of the balance, which is the funding. So we're improving, I would say, our structure with loan-to-deposit ratio moving to the more balanced figure of slightly above 82% at the end of 2019. We continue to be the bank that most of funds borrowing at the local market. So 95% the deposits are from Lithuanian residents and the companies. The slight shift continues towards demand deposits, and the private individuals are prevailing. The majority of the deposits from the private individuals. There's no trends in the cost of funding. In general, it stays flat and then at the level of 0.4%. The alternative that we have built recently together with platform Raisin allows us to access German market. So this ability is in place. So 12 million euros has been generated through this platform, and outstanding amount is the 12 million has been generated with a term of above 3 years, and the average interest rate of deposit generated through the Raisin is 1.65%, and the average duration is 4.5 years. The daily banking and trading activities information, I would say successful year on the fees and commission business, 18% up compared to 2018. Several one-off elements also have been reflected in our information on the net fee and commission income, including some disbursement from the MasterCard of 300,000 euros, and also recalculating part of our net fee income, which is related with the consumer financing, which was relocated from commission income to the interest income, and that is reflected in the graph presented in the slide number 9. From the other things that I'm also happy to mention is the service packages that we are successfully continue to provide to our clients. So the 24% growth with the private individual sector, and 30% growth with the corporate clients that are using our service plans, which is comfortable solution for the fixed fee to have our different kind of services included in this service plan. Successful growth of I would say FX operations continues, so 16% growth year on year compared to the 2018, and seems that trend is continues for quite a long period of time. Of course, the growth of 18% of net fee and commission is hard to sustain for the long term, so we see slight decrease and potentially we'll have challenges of continuing growing our commission income at the level of close to 20% due to the, I would say, challenging markets, due to the tough requirements on the client transaction monitoring, and some of the clients will have to and are leaving the bank and the system. However, see a positive trends as well, that the bank continues to have a strong presence in Lithuanian market in the branch network, and we continue to provide different type of retail services, including cash operations, payments, and account administration services that I assume looking forward will continue to grow. Customer service network and the quality slide. So as I started already describing the previous slide, that we committed to our strategy to service clients not only online, but having our branch network, which is largest in the country, with 60 regional outlets, including major cities and a smaller town. So in 37 directions or places. So we treat ourselves as the bank which is very close to the clients, and this proximity I believe on the long term benefits also into the P&L effects. So we invest not only to our IT and our internet channels, but also continue to upgrade our branch network. 21 has been renovated, and we will continue this refurbishment during 2020. Also, I'm very glad to remind and to mention our achievement, second year in a row to be recognized by independent evaluators as a company, as a financial institution with best service quality. And it seems that our investments in our brand awareness and our positioning review, saying that we are the bank closer to the client, closer to you, repays, and we differentiate ourselves through those qualities. Capital and liquidity position, I would say both parameters well above the minimum requirements. Of course, most important parameter we follow is the capital adequacy ratio. So we try to have a good balance of this parameter, and recently reviewed our risk appetite, internal risk appetite level, and increased that by 50 basis points up to 15.5%, following the requirements by the regulators, and with some increases in the buffers, we need to raise this bar of our internal risk appetite. External requirement we treat as a 13.5%, which has to be minimum capital adequacy ratio at the end of 2020. And I believe with the current capital base and the profit generated in 2019, we'll manage to be above those requirements during the year and at the end of the year. Supporting that capital base, we issued a 10-year subordinated bond at the end of 2019 of 20 million euros with the 6.15% interest rate. And that also important not only for the capital, but also it could be, and it will be used as eligible liabilities to meet MREL requirements. So from liquidity's perspective, there's not so much to add. We stand above, our LCR ratio stands above the regulatory requirements. Of course, in the current environment, we're following liquidity position on a daily basis in order to be prepared for any movements of coronavirus potential outcomes. So that risk has been highlighted in the bank during the current period. Okay, next slide is more about recent developments around us and with Šiaulių bankas. So I could start with, say, probably not that visible issue externally, but internally it's important change. So the regulatory change, as we say, start moving from the Central Bank of Lithuania supervision to the ECB. So most of the supervision now will be performed by the European Central Bank, and from one hand, it's a burden and it's much more workload on the bank staff. On the other hand, it's a strong signal to the market that Šiaulių bankas will be and is already among 117 systemically important institutions in the Eurozone. And according to that, our standards and our risk management and all the processes will be aligned to that level, and the requirements are directed to that the bank should be at the level of among other systemically important institutions. Related to that, currently bank performs so-called comprehensive assessment exercise, and it consists of asset quality review and the stress test. So this exercise performed by the ECB team, and currently we in a process. So this is extensive exercise for the bank, and a number of different type of resources are allocated to fulfill all the tasks that comes from this process. It will take some time. We're expecting results in the midst of the autumn. And we'll try to do all our best to prove that the quality of Šiaulių bankas assets and related to this exercise procedures are in place, and we are ready for this evaluation. A second thing worth mentioning about inspection results. So they were announced already some time ago when it was finished. So I would like just to emphasize that we constantly continue to focus on anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing issues, and we putting a lot of emphasis to this area, strengthening our system and staff. So most of the investments and improvements in the processes has been achieved, and several items has left. So we have a time till the middle of this year to complete all the issues that has been raised by the Central Bank of Lithuania, and I'm sure that we will satisfy all the requirements that were highlighted by the regulator. And also information that despite that we appealed the imposed fine by the central bank, the provisions for this amount has been booked in the profit and loss account in 2019. Another topic worth mentioning of the recent developments or recent topics is the strategic alternative analysis. So there's not so many things I could say as of today. The agreement with Wood & Co is in place. We continue to see what's happening in the situation. We have a constant meetings and updates with investment bankers. However, due to the very intense regulatory burden on organization, we are not running at the full speed, and potentially it will take more time than we expected due to those exercises that we are now doing with the European Central Bank. Danske Bank portfolio acquisitions I've already touched a bit during the presentation on about the mortgages, and just could say that I don't see any major probability that we will not complete this exercise, since both parties are interested to complete the transaction, and the works in progress of moving client information and all related other IT work is going as it is planned. And probably the hottest topic is the important for the previous weeks is the uncertainty of coronavirus outbreak worldwide, and coming closer to all of us in our countries, so including Lithuania. So it's I would say still very hard to predict the full impact of this outbreak, and so our steps are both very operational and also projecting and looking what potential scenarios could develop and preparing accordingly. So initial actions were mainly concentrated on the physical issues related with coronavirus, so employees' safety and the client safety preparedness for the larger outbreak in Lithuania. However, currently I would say the situation is fully under control. Only one case is counted in the country, but we need to be prepared for the further negative development as well. So as I mentioned, also the liquidity management is highlighted in organization, the cash readiness in the ATMs. So a number of tactical elements are in place, and we are now starting to project further what impact could be on credit quality, on the client behavior, and to gather the early signs of potential issues in the future. So the work is increasing towards the potential impact of coronavirus. But as I said, it's a bit too early to evaluate what the outcome of that will be in the future. So let's touch the key performance indicators for 2020. So we have a strategic plan of the bank from 2019 and 2021. So we work according to this this plan, and our projections for this year also based on this plan. So key performance indicators are mentioned in the slides, and as the previous years, we continues with our target to project our business with expected return to the shareholders capital at the level of more than 15%, cost and income ratio to have below 45. Already mentioned in my previous slides that capital adequacy ratio and NP ratios should stand at 15.5 and below 4% respectively. And continuing our developing our strategic lines further, so focusing on corporate financing, consumer financing, and potentially growing our mortgages as well, and remaining the best service financial institution in the country with top-notch customer satisfaction. And the last slide from the presentation is showing the number of key indicators during the longer period of time. So I believe Šiaulių bankas remains interest stock in the market with relatively good performance in the numerous of key indicators. I'm very proud and happy having the company which that traded most in the Nasdaq Baltic in 2019 and also 2020. So the average daily turnover now in 2019 was in the range of 200,000 euros, and the first month of 2020 shows average turnover of 350,000 euros a day. So it's a very strong performance, having more and more liquid stock that I believe will attract those investors who are very eager to look for high liquidity of a stock in the market. Looking for the target pricing, so according to those key indicators, analyst indicates the target price level in the range of 0.6 to 0.7 level. So that already stands for quite a long time, and I believe the market share has a trend moving towards those levels in the future. And probably I still could not provide information that's important for the most of the investors, the dividend proposition. But shortly we'll make those decisions in the management bodies of Šiaulių bankas, and most likely next week the information will be provided regarding the proposition of a dividend level that has to be later this month to be approved by the annual general meeting of shareholders of Šiaulių bankas. So I would stop now, and thank you for your attention so far, and looking forward for your questions either to myself or to Donatas Savickas. Thank you.
Mr. Sinius, thank you very much for your presentation. We will now continue with the questions in the order they were received. But before, I would like to remind you that you can still send your questions in the section on the right side of the screen. And the first question will be the following. Could you please describe dividend policy outlook for 2021-2023?
Hello, I will take this question. So Vytautas already mentioned it in his main presentation that we cannot disclose exact figures for dividends for 2019, but as the question refers to the further period, so I just can say that we follow our dividend policy, which was approved in 2018, and which says that in the case that internal capital and liquidity requirements are met and level of capital after expected dividend payments remain sufficient, then not less than 25% of group earns annual profit will be distributed in the forms of dividends. This is our current dividend policy. So we have plans to follow it, and we'll see the situation, how it develops, and reflect accordingly. So this is what I can disclose right now.
Thank you very much for your answer. What is projected loan portfolio growth and earnings per share guidance for 2020?
Again, the exact figures for loan portfolio growth we are not disclosing, but as Vytautas again mentioned, so last year was very we can use the word successful, or we can use the word aggressive in the terms of loan portfolio growth. We had 21% portfolio growth. So this year in 2020, I think that our growth rate will be more moderate, and different factors could affect that, but the short answer would be so lower than last year.
Thank you.
And sorry, the second part of questions about earnings per share. So last year earnings per share was 9 cents, and we keep our target to reach not less than 15% return on equity. So it's simple math can suggest that the earnings per share figure will be also quite close to the previous year level.
Next question. Do you plan to implement share buyback program, and when? The difference between the stock price and its book value has increased.
So yes, we have this possibility of buybacks, and this opportunity has been created last year, and we need to see how it will develop. If the share price will be below the book value, this opportunity appears, and we will, look for the needs of using that. Of course, it will be considered in the light of actual dividend payout level. So let's see what's dividend payout level, and then we'll continue considering whether buyback is needed. And of course, as I said, we will see how the share price will develop in the future.
Thank you. How many bank shares, numbers, and in euros were granted for bank employees free of charge in 2019?
This figure was disclosed in the May last year, but I can repeat that slightly more than 1.1 million shares were bought, and for the total value of slightly more than 600,000 euros. and it was bought as a part of variable remuneration for the bank employees.
Next question. Are there any negotiations for the purchase of the Medicinos bankas?
No, actually, there is no currently any negotiations on the purchase of Medicinos bankas. We know that the bank is potentially on sale. We're following what's happening, but so far we are focused with the acquisition of mortgage portfolio from Danske Bank, and we'll see how the situation will develop further with Medicinos bankas.
Thank you. How many people you have working today in IT department to automate and build new systems? How many persons you are planning to hire in IT? What is the budget for the IT department in 2020?
Okay, quite specific question. I will try to answer by heart with some potential deviation from the exact figures, but we have an IT team of 30 plus people. During this year, we're expecting to have the team of close to 40 people, and the investments into IT-related projects stands at the level of 3.5 million euros. So we're having some plans to invest in IT quite strongly this year. Most of this investment will come as amortization costs during the longer period. But yes, one of the priorities for 2020 is continuous strengthening of IT systems and human resources as well.
Thank you. What is your current market share in terms of mortgage loans, and is there some target you would like to reach?
Yeah, okay. So we grew our market share during 2019 from, I would say, very small figure, 0.6% to 1.2%. So we doubled the market share as well as the portfolio grew. After the acquisition, if we complete successfully with Danske Bank, we have, if I recall correctly, close to 3%. And the longer term, I would say, guidance or projection, I would name the overall level of Šiaulių bankas asset market share, which stands at about 8%. So having the large branch network, a strong presence in a retail, and a continuous, growth of a bank, I assume we can reach the level of a bank's asset share. Yeah, that could be an indication. It's still probably hard to say the timing, but as you see, with acquiring portfolios and with growing organically, you can grow much faster than just organically.
Thank you. Is the assumption correct that the special income tax rate for banks of 20% applies only for the parent company and not for leasing and other subsidiaries? What could be the effective tax rate for the group in 2020?
We understand the same way as the person who put this question, that income tax applies only for the banks. And what could be effective tax rate for the group in 2020? So of course we estimate that effective tax rate, and it depends on many different factors, but our estimation is that effective tax rate could be in the range of 17% for the group in this year.
Thank you. Do you expect to see increases in minimum capital requirements beyond 2020?
Again, so this capital requirement is moving target, and as we see, situation is changing, so the probability that capital requirement level could be increased is relatively high. So different factors, including ECB supervision. Yes.
Thank you. A number of banks, including Danske, ABLV, some others have disappeared from the Baltic scene, including Lithuania. That would open up opportunities for other banks to take a bigger share. Why you still have so modest plans with very moderate growth rate?
I'm not sure whether I really well understood the question about the moderate growth rates. Looking retrospectively of Šiaulių Bankas growing like 17 or 21% in the previous years, I would say we are definitely using this opportunity of changes in the banking market, mainly in Lithuania. So I would say we are using this opportunity, but weighting that with potential risks. So that's our approach to grow rather, I would say, aggressively, but never forgetting the potential risks coming out of the especially lending activities. We've passed a number of crises, and Šiaulių Bankas is quite well aware of risks that could come out of the credit exposures. Therefore, I hope we've learned those lessons, and we want to grow long period in the future as well, not making a few successful years, but then potential high losses in the tough times. So I would assume that we using this opportunity and taking those clients which constantly improving the risk profile of the loan portfolio of Šiaulių Bankas. And I would say that's one of the success factors for Šiaulių Bankas to continue demonstrate good results, but I believe to make them sustainable.
Thank you. Is management satisfied with the results from insurance activities?
So our life insurance subsidiary have very small market share in the Lithuanian insurance market, and we see a possibility to increase, especially taking into account the possible synergy with the bank network and bank clients. Currently, we see the first results of that synergy and the cooperation between bank and the insurance company it's going up and showing good results. Of course, the insurance business is such that growth of company affect current year's results, and the faster growth, the more negative impact to the current year results. So we are trying to reach the balance between the growth and the profitability in each particular year. So the answer would be, so we see a possibility to improve the activity of insurance, but we see the future of such cooperation with the bank.
Thank you. What additional opportunities is Šiaulių bankas investigating to expand the business in future?
So one I would say is already ongoing, so that's the mortgages. We started last year to be much more proactive in this business segment. It's I would say continuous and interesting business segment for Šiaulių bankas, and I don't see major reasons why we could not grow further in this area and both balance our loan portfolio and also to generate decent profitability in the current environment. So that's one. The second, we haven't mentioned many things today about renovation, but this area continues to be of interest to Šiaulių bankas. It develops. It now under the construction of new schemes related with renovation, and we are actively participating in there. So I would say we hope that the new page in renovation programs, which are continuous currently, and we have an ongoing programs, but we also looking for the future how it will develop and preparing for that. So I would say renovation is the historic, but also with the new programs, also the new business for Šiaulių bankas, capitalizing on the knowledge that we accumulated during the last decade in this area. But our strategy in general to be focused bank and to generate as much value of those strategic business lines where we feel being best in class and can provide our clients the best service using those services. Yeah.
Thank you. When stock trading will be free of charge in Šiaulių bankas Invest platform?
Good question. Thank you. So yes, as I'm also trading, and I like when something is free of charge, but it depends from the environment and the acts of competitors. So we see the first signals of free trading, and we'll see is the permanent trend or is just a marketing campaign to attract new customers. So again, we see nothing is free in general, but we will react to the market situation accordingly, and I cannot exclude such possibility in the future.
Thank you. What are the plans for the retained profit?
I'm not sure if I understand this question correctly, but of course the part of the profit from each year stays in the equity, and sometimes it could be paid as a dividends. But as the bank is growing, so we need this earnings to finance the future growth. If the situation will change and bank see no possibility to grow in the future, so this retained profit could be paid out to shareholders. That would be the answer.
Thank you. There are two questions on the same topic on bank tax in Lithuania. So could you please describe current political risk in Lithuania for people not familiar with the local legal system? Is there risk for extra taxation on banks?
Mm-hmm. So one question was about update on a potential bank tax in Lithuania. So currently, I don't see that as a very big likelihood that this additional tax could be imposed. Currently, we have extra 5% corporate income tax for the banks starting from 2020. So no discussions on the alternatives or additional taxes. However, we have the periods of forthcoming elections in the October 2020, and we could see the some heating in the discussions among politicians, what could be additionally proposed, how to improve the whatever taxation in Lithuania. So political speculations I would not avoid, but I don't expect any practical issues with the taxation in this year. Talking about the political risk in Lithuania, I would still say it's low. It's the political risk is low. Despite that, I would say, as I mentioned, we have an election year, so there will be some more attention and some more uncertainty how it will end up. But I would say Lithuanian political system showed already resilience in 30 years of history, that it could accommodate situation after elections quite successfully. So I don't expect any major risks related with the political issues in Lithuania during this year.
Thank you. Do you see bigger challenges for profitability in 2020 compared to 2019, and from what sources?
As arriving more from risk and finances, I often see challenges for current profitability, and I'm happy that these challenges I see sometimes not materializes. But talking about 2020, so probably everyone see the challenges from what is appearing right now in the world, the coronavirus impact to the companies, not necessarily directly to the banks, but our customers who will be affected, and of course they will be affected. So it's a question how resilient they are in their business and how it affect the credit quality for Šiaulių bankas and for all financial institutions, and the reaction in the market and the share prices movement. So we see that reflect that worry in the market. Another challenge is probably the comprehensive assessment exercise what we are currently running through. So this has no real impact on the quality of the bank, but the methodology that ECB uses is very conservative, and it also could be the factor that could affect temporarily the profitability of any financial institution, including Šiaulių bankas.
Thank you. Is Danske's corporate portfolio also for sale, or the company is just leaving from Danske through refinancing from other banks?
Well, as far as I know, the corporate loan portfolio is not on a sale, and the clients are choosing the new partners, and those who are willing to be refinanced, they are refinanced, and those who are still willing to stay with the bank, they continue repayment. So some of the clients are also came to Šiaulių bankas, and we were happy to. The healthy clients are refinanced by Šiaulių bankas. So I would expect that it could continue like that, unless the Danske Bank will announce something.
Thank you. Has Šiaulių bankas any plans to expand into foreign countries?
Yeah, we receive this question quite often, but I would say we're quite committed to the current market, and we see opportunities focusing here, generating value, mainly Lithuania, at least while the current environment allows us to grow our market shares in the different of business segments. And I would say we are quite successfully using this opportunity, and so far the climate is favorable for our bank to grow in Lithuania. Therefore, in the recent moments in this year, we focused on Lithuanian market, and in the future we will see.
Thank you. Do you feel the competition for deposits from so-called emerging fintechs like Revolut or similar? Have you got plans to tackle them and maybe offer some extended digital presence, including mobile phone apps, access to the accounts, easier money transfer, stock trading?
So it's like a bit two questions in one. So probably due to the high liquidity in the market or not that much active presence of fintechs, we don't see any major shifts in the deposit market in Lithuania. So most of the deposit stays with traditional banks. Of course, in the future it could change, and depending on the players who are potentially could come to the country and to be active in the deposit market, and of course the liquidity situation in the market. So I would say it will depend on that. And talking about the digital solutions, so yes, that's one of the targets of Šiaulių bankas, and by mentioning investments into IT, one of the ongoing investments is upgrade of our internet bank and application, and we expect in the midst of the year to come with the upgraded version of internet bank and application. So most of the services that are in place and upgraded will be in the new solutions, and regarding the other developments or other services in the digital solutions, we will follow the trends and the customer needs.
Thank you. How, where, or is Šiaulių bankas cooperating with Invalda, one of the shareholders?
There is no kind of direct cooperation with Invalda as the shareholder, but we have some cooperations on the business line. So we we act as intermediary providing the sale of investment products of Invalda. So Inval company. So as far as I remember, that's the main cooperation with this institution.
Thank you. Are you planning to cooperate such as TD, Ameritrade platform Think or Swim or similar?
The priority segments that Šiaulių bankas is operating is corporate financing and consumer financing, and these trading platforms the question is mentioning, so it's not our priority. So we provide the basic services for daily banking, but we not trying to be the top-notch market makers or market leaders in that field of business. That short answer would be no, not in the nearest future at least.
And the last question, what is the price of Danske portfolio?
Danske portfolio price is not disclosed at the moment, and when this transaction will be completed, probably in the beginning of May, so we will provide more information about the amount of this portfolio, actual amount, and the price probably as well. So market will be informed accordingly.
So it looks like we've covered all our questions. On behalf of Nasdaq Vilnius, thank you everyone. It was a pleasure being with you at traditional webinar session. Record of the presentation will be available in the Nasdaq Baltic YouTube channel webinar playlist, and you will receive a follow-up email as well with direct link to today's recording. Mr. Sinius, Mr. Savickas, thank you very much for your time, presentation, and answers given. Participants, thank you for joining and hope to see you next time.